It's 5 minutes of psychology with me, Dr. Bob. Well, if you study psychology much, one thing that becomes pretty clear, and that's that psychologists love pathology. You've got Sigmund Freud, who wanted to know what's going on with all those hysterical women, Carl Jung, who wanted to know what's going on with all those shell-shocked soldiers. Try saying that 5 times fast, by the way. And of course, you've got James Watson and Rosalie Rayner, who wanted to know what's going on with baby Albert. Actually, bad example, they knew darn well what's going on with baby Albert. So, into this mix comes Ed Diener, aka Dr. Happy. And Diener had a pretty genius idea. He thought to himself, instead of studying pathology, why don't we study normal, healthy people and see what makes them tick? Heck, let's actually study happy people. I mean, after all, pathology gets so boring after a while, and if we understand what makes people happy, we could steal their secrets. Not exactly the way he put it, but you get the idea. So the study I'm going to tell you about today is called Very Happy People. Sounds like an REM song, but it's actually a paper by Diener and Seligman published in 2002 in the journal Psychological Science. Now, when Diener proposed this idea, why not study happy people? A lot of scientists said, pshaw, you can't really study happiness. After all, it's complex and it's subjective. How can you measure it in a rigorous way that would pass scientific muster? Fortunately, Diener didn't have just one good idea, but several very good ideas and a really good work ethic. And he came up with a strategy. First, through a lot of research, he realized that we could break happiness up into 2 different parts or components. Life satisfaction, which is how you think about your life, how you would evaluate in a cognitive way how your life is going and if you're overall satisfied with it. And your daily emotional balance. These are your day-to-day feelings, the emotive or affective part of your happiness, whether or not just day-to-day you're experiencing more positive relative to negative emotions. Diener also figured that we could just ask about happiness in lots of different ways to make sure that it actually is measured correctly and in a scientifically acceptable fashion. And if we do both these things, then we could try to identify the very happiest people and try to figure out what really makes them tick. So here's the actual study. Diener and Seligman gathered a large group of college students, 222 to be exact. And then they measured their life satisfaction and affective balance in several different ways. They used self-report, which is basically just asking them how happy they felt on multiple different occasions. They used informant report, which is asking the participants' friends or neighbors about how happy they thought they were. And they used some clever performance-based measures, something like hurry up and list every positive thing that happened to you this week in just 2 minutes. And these are really clever measures because they kind of put people on the spot and don't give them the chance to really be reactive to the types of questions that the experimenter is asking. In addition to asking about their happiness, they also tried to learn as much other stuff as possible about these participants. They measured their personality, they asked about their social relationships, their religious attitudes, and a lot of other variables. So, the first lesson that Diener and Seligman found is yes, happiness can be measured in a scientifically valid way. When they asked for the self-report, how people just rated their own happiness, they found that some people consistently were the most happy. When they asked informants, they found that the very same people were consistently rated the most happy. And when they went to the performance-based measures, guess what? The same people once again were rated as the very most happy. So this shows the validity that any way you measure it, the same people keep coming up as happy, same people keep coming up as sad, and the same people keep coming up in the middle. So there's a reliable, replicable way to measure this construct. The second lesson that Diener and Seligman found is that most people are generally fairly happy. So for the average participant, they scored about a 25 on a 35-point scale for their overall satisfaction with life, and they had about 2 positive emotions for every 1 negative emotion or event that happened in their life. That's a pretty good level of happiness. Nevertheless, there were some people that really stood out. Diener and Seligman focused in on these people, and they asked the question, what are these people like? First of all, these people are quite happy. They're in the top 10% of the very happy, scored about 29.4 out of 35 in their overall life satisfaction, and had between 3 to 4 positive events for every negative event or emotion in their life. That's pretty happy. So besides being happy, what are these people like? Well, Diener and Seligman found that the very happy also have very close social, family, and romantic relationships. They spend less of their time alone than the unhappy and more of their time socializing. They tend to be extroverted and not neurotic, and they're very healthy psychologically. Interestingly, there are some things that are not particularly characteristic of the very happy. The very happy are no more likely than the unhappy to perceive themselves as wealthy, to be rated as attractive by others, to have a high GPA in school, to use alcohol or tobacco, or to exercise. So for anyone who's not wealthy, not attractive, failing out of school, using a lot of drugs, or not getting to the gym, there is hope for you. You could still become a happy person. Another important finding is that the very happy are still sad or alone sometimes, so their happiness is not a pathological manic state. So if these are the characteristics of the very happy, could we emulate them to become like them? Well, maybe not. What Diener and Seligman found is that there were some people who had some of the characteristics of the very happy, yet for some reason did not end up very happy. These people may have had great social relationships and or be extroverted, but just didn't seem to get to that perfect level of happiness. This led Diener and Seligman to speculate that happiness isn't about any one particular quality, but maybe just getting the right balance of these qualities in your life. Now, there are some important caveats to this research. First of all, it's correlational, and as every psychologist would love to rhyme at you, correlation is not causation. It may be that having really great friends is a way to become happy, but it could also be that being happy is the way to attract good friends around you. In addition, it could be that there's some third variable, like health, at play. Being healthy, for example, might make you fit and vigorous and able to go out and have some good friends, and it could also be a reason for you to be very happy. And in that case, the found correlation between friendship and happiness could be spurious. Another important caveat is that the relationships that Diener and Seligman found are fairly small. For example, close friendships predicted only about 24% of the variation in happiness. That means that you could go out and take a lot more selfies and recruit a big social network, but you may not get a huge boost in happiness even if the relationship is causal. Even with these caveats, this paper is seminal. It's now been cited 899 times, and it really is one of the first key papers that helped launch what has now become a huge movement in psychology to really undertake a scientific exploration of science, something we can all be quite happy about. The end.